All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Atrium Customer Office Hours. Really excited to have everybody here. My name is Richard Lynn, and I am a senior CSM here at Atrium. Today, we're going to be discussing broadcast strategy using Atrium via Atrium's email and Slack integrations. I'd love to give folks just a few minutes to join. So while they're trickling in, go ahead and let us know in the chat who you are, where you're calling in from, and what you're most excited to learn about today. Awesome. For those of you who just joined, welcome to today's episode again of Atrium Customer Office Hours. Very, very excited to have you all here. Again, my name is Richard Lynn. I'm a senior CSM here at Atrium. I focus on our upper mid-market and enterprise customers. And today we'll be focusing and discussing broadcast strategy with Atrium using Atrium's integrations with email and Slack. Once you're in the room, go ahead and let us know in the chat who you are, where you're calling in from, and what you want to learn today. Definitely also share your LinkedIn URL. This is a great place to connect with other data-driven sales leaders. So excited to give you all a brief networking opportunity in the chat as well. Let's give everybody maybe 2 more minutes to hop on, and then we will jump into our content. Yeah, and again, if you're just joining, feel free to get into the chat and connect with the folks who are on this call. Again, everybody here is a data-driven sales leader and an Atrium customer, so very exciting forum to connect with folks as we get teed up to learn about broadcasting within Atrium. Hey, Mary. Hey, Bridget. Oh, all right. We've got Steamboat Springs, Colorado calling in. Mary, where are you calling in from? Awesome. So, wow, Manhattan Beach. I'm in Marina Del Rey, so right up the road from you. I believe we have another Atrium who is from Manhattan Beach originally. Love it. We'll get together and work on broadcasting. Okay, so let's get started. I think that we have a quorum here. So before we dive into the content, I want to give a special shout out to Modern Sales Pros. Modern Sales Pros is Atrium's community area, and it's a network of 25,000 sales leadership professionals that you can learn from. The venue isn't dissimilar to this one, which is intended to be very high value and super educational. So we'd love to have you join to continue leveling up your data-driven sales management skills. So go ahead and sign up in the link that we just posted in the chat, and you can select Richard Lynn as your point of contact during the sign-up flow. Great. So as we begin to dive into our content, please feel free to drop in the chat what you're most looking forward to learning in relation to our topic today. It's also a great opportunity to drop your LinkedIn in the chat. Again, this is one of the best places in the world to connect with other data-driven sales managers. In terms of agenda today, we're going to spend about 10 to 15 minutes setting context, and I'll share some general principles related to sales metric broadcasting. From there, we'll spend a bit of time in Atrium using real customer data with names hidden, of course, where I can show you how you can approach broadcasts. And then from there, we'll head into a live Q&A. Remember, this time is for you. We had about 70 customers on the calendar invite for today, so there's probably a good chance that someone else in this session has the same question or wants to see the same example as you. So use me as a resource, pop those questions into the chat, pop them into Q&A, and let's dig into Atrium today. One other thing I'd like to bring up before we get started is the importance of the interactiveness of these sessions. So everyone on this session right now is an Atrium customer. So please leverage my expertise and leverage the expertise of fellow customers on this call. We're all here to learn, so keep the questions coming and help me help you. Use the chat, use the QA panel, and in the QA panel, you can comment and upvote on others' questions. Cool. So with that said, let's dive into it. Here at Atrium, we sort of follow these three core pillars when it comes to our broadcast strategy. And what we have on screen here is kind of our mission statement when it comes to broadcasting, which is when thinking about a strategy for distributing dashboards or other data, the goal is to get the right information to the right people at the right time. There are many perils when the products that you purchase come with the ability to broadcast. These can range from landing a random dashboard in a wrong channel, opening a can of worms, sending it to the CEO on accident. And so the purpose of this session is not just to show you how to send emails or send Slacks, but to provide specific, insightful, and actionable views to the right people within their managerial cadences. So there's a lot more to just firing out data on all cylinders. And while that can be useful, often we find that it creates churn and disinterest and often causes core users to tune out of valuable information that you're trying to get out to your sales leaders. And so the purpose of this session is to kind of focus us around these three core pillars and how to put them together. And ultimately, we'll turn over to Atrium and actually show you how to do this in practice. I want to start with talking about the right information. And so here we like to sort of describe the information as high signal. What is something that is highly actionable, really gives you that bias to action, something that you can do when you receive this information, something that's very insightful, that tells you something about your business or your rep, is a leading indicator to a result that you are striving for. And how do you make this low noise? How do you not inundate someone with a wall of charts or a dashboard that takes a lot of time to interpret? We sort of look at this in three key ways. The first one is the audience. Who needs to know this information and at what granularity? We have a little bit more detail on this in the next few slides, but when you think about those personas that you're broadcasting this information to, what kind of information is useful for them and how they can do their job and help you? At an executive level, you want to keep things fairly high level and focused on positive or negative business results and highlighting what we're doing ultimately at the top line. At the manager level, you want to provide a little bit more detail on the sales objectives that you're looking to attain, as well as starting to surface some more granular activity level data. And then when you get to the rep level, focusing on what they can do, sales activities, ultimately things that are within their control. And so the granularity sort of becomes a little bit tighter as you move up the chain. And so ensuring that you know what audience you're attempting to broadcast to helps you sort of shape the views that you're looking to broadcast. In terms of frequency, how often does this information meaningfully change is a core tenet when it comes to determining when to send out these broadcasts. We often find folks sending broadcasts on a very basic framework of like beginning of the week, first thing Monday morning. And then we end up finding situations where all of the dashboards, all the views and all the alerts come in first thing Monday morning and nobody ends up reading them. A lot of it is not even relevant on Mondays. A lot of them might not be relevant at the end of the week either. And so understanding your business, understanding how things move through the funnel when folks take certain actions, this will help inform you in terms of the frequency with which you should be sending out these broadcasts and at what time. And kind of following on to that is how quickly would we need to take action if something were off? When we think about alerts or views or broadcasts, and we continue to sort of hammer home the point of actionability, when should you receive this in terms of how quickly you can take action? If this is a bookings result, it's probably not something you can change tomorrow. But if you're midweek and you have a certain activity metric or a pipeline creation metric, that could be something that is actionable for a rep or for a sales manager. And so different examples of in terms of how quickly you can take action when you should ultimately receive these alerts. And then level of interrupt, which is something that I'm personally quite passionate about. I've personally been in situations where automated emails from a certain platform has created essentially churn for me. If I see too much of something from a platform, ultimately I tune it out. I'm not the kind of person who can sift through hundreds of notifications with the same subject line. And so is this information that should be pushed out is a question that I often ask my customers and say, look, we are very much focused on broadcasting, but we're not focused on inundating folks and just getting a million Atrium emails in your inbox. We want to keep it highly, highly insightful at a frequency that makes sense to the right folks, and make sure that the level of interrupt is sustainable. It's something that sort of your eyes light up when you see it, and you get perked up and you're ready to go when you see something from Atrium, not something where you're rolling your eyes and saying, well, here come the hundreds of Atrium emails again, and I'm just going to archive these immediately. And then sort of the second point here on level of interrupt is where we start to bifurcate between emails and Slacks. Is it important enough to use a higher interrupt channel? And we sort of consider the two channels that we typically broadcast to. One of them, that being Slack, is a little bit higher interrupt. It's much more embedded in your day-to-day. You sort of check it constantly for IMs. And so what belongs in Slack and what is something that can be reviewed sort of asynchronously in your email? And so these are points that we think about quite diligently when we get into our broadcasting configuration pages in Atrium and start to think about who and when I should receive these. Awesome. Again, oh, got something here from Mary. Yeah, Mary, I think we do have some resources for you here on forecasting and predicting. We do have some playbooks on our support site. So I think that we can forward those on to you in this chat, and also something we can take offline. There are certainly some alerts that can be configured against forecasts and modeling that we can pull out of Atrium. Here we're talking a little bit more in general about sort of a high-level broadcast strategy, but definitely something that we can sync up offline. I can have your CSM reach out to you with the specifics. So thank you for asking that question. Awesome. So we talked a little bit about frequency above, as well as the right channel and the level of interrupt. And so what I wanted to sort of focus on is what kinds of metrics really make sense for the different time frames. So when you use Atrium, and really when we think about broadcast strategies in general, the frequencies we have sort of align with calendar timeframes and fiscal calendar timeframes of daily, weekly, monthly, as well as quarterly. And so we'll just start with the most granular here and walk through this list. So in terms of metrics that we would want to see on a daily basis, again, when we think back to the question of how quickly can we action against this alert, really the things that we're looking at are discrete sales activities that a rep can take action on immediately. If you receive a warning alert in the middle of your week on a Wednesday that says, hey, you're a little bit under your meetings on calendar goal, or you haven't sent as many emails this week as you have for the trailing 30 days, that's something that you can action right away. You can sort of do some quick strategizing, think about your messaging, and start firing off those emails or scheduling meetings for you to sort of take action on and get in front of your customers. Moving on to weekly, this is where we start to sort of zoom out a little bit on what you're able to take action on. So you'll see there is a little bit of bleed from time frame to time frame. Meetings is on the daily row, but also on the weekly row, given that sometimes, towards the end of the week, you're not going to really squeeze in a meeting if you're getting your alert on Friday and then putting something on for Friday afternoon that's customer facing. So we do sort of zoom out on the higher level metrics as we kind of think about how actionable they are. So meetings, new opportunities, as well as opportunity health, which is a very cool feature within Atrium that shows you your activity levels against open opportunities. These we consider things that you can take action on weekly. So for new ops, as an example, we tend to review this on Mondays to take a look at the week prior and see, hey, how many new ops are in your pipeline? If you are a prospecting group, how many ops have you created in the last week? And then you can, from there, action for the following week. Say, hey, we were a little bit light in terms of our prospecting activity. There could be a number of reasons for that, but now we can sort of renew our focus for that for the upcoming week. Same thing for opportunity health. If you've used opportunity health before, I'll just give you a 30-second overview of it. We algorithmically score opportunities from poor to good health, given a number of factors, and those include the days that you have not touched an opportunity, the days since you had an inbound email, the opportunity age, when your next meeting is, etc. And so if you have an alert set up to surface your poor opportunities in terms of op health, that gives you something quite actionable in that week to send out an email, strategize a little bit on the account, see if it's something that's worth closing out and keeping your pipeline rather healthy and focused. And so this is something that is more actionable on a weekly basis. And so we sort of zoom out a little bit in terms of time frame. The next tranche of metrics is something that we think of on a monthly basis. And we do sort of put these up on a weekly or monthly basis in terms of frequency. These would include, again, ops created, ops advanced through your funnel, and then ultimately the successful business outcomes that we're all striving for, wins and bookings. So very frequently, we don't see sales cycles that are less than a week. That's why we try to kind of surface this as monthly. And then as you look at your trends over time and you receive broadcasts and alerts against your wins and bookings, you're able to sort of strategize and build pipeline against these goals. So again, thinking about how quickly you can action against these broadcasts for wins and bookings, because it takes a little bit longer to achieve these. We like to show these on a monthly basis or a weekly basis if you're at a little bit faster sales cycle time, and also just to kind of check in on your progress over time. And then on a quarterly basis, these tend to be distributions that we send to sales leadership, C-suite executives, VPs and above. These would be things that are, more focused at a high level, something that execs can chat about in their sort of business reviews, as well as metrics that don't change that often. So bookings is probably the most high frequency changing metric on this list, but average sales price is something that, given it's an average, it takes time for that to stabilize. Win rates and conversion rates, same thing. We're looking at ratios across the entire business or at the team level. And so it takes time for these to kind of develop as well as stabilize and smooth out any outliers that happen throughout a given quarter or given month. Next, I want to talk a little bit about matching the right asset to the right distribution channel. So we've talked a little bit about interrupt through email and Slack, but one other thing that I want to focus on here, which is the sort of first column here, is bookmarking and calendaring. And here I'm going to speak a little bit about how we actually use Atrium internally here at Atrium HQ. When we create weekly meetings on our calendar, these can be team meetings, these can be pipeline reviews, they can be upsell reviews, they can be one-on-ones. What we like to do is link the Atrium resource directly into our calendar and setting aside time within the agenda to review that specific asset. An example that I spoke on in the last slide was opportunity health. And so when we look at renewal risk as an example, we like to pull opportunity health up and see how often we're hitting these accounts, making sure they're in good health. And so from there, we use that as a proxy to say they are either a renewal risk or not if they are in good health. Focus on supporting a robust live discussion. The idea around having this content within a meeting invite and bringing it up every week or every 2 weeks is that it should be targeted to the right people with the right information. Right time is kind of a given since it is going to be on your calendar. And so that is already a focus session specific for the subject at hand. But it's a really great reinforcing mechanism, and not so much a broadcast in terms of an integrated broadcast with some kind of messaging service, but something in terms of getting the right information to the right people in a form that is appropriate for that data. As we move into email, this is something that is happening on a recurring basis. It is a good forum for longer resources, so distributing a longer dashboard that is focused. It could be on an individual rep, it could be at a team, it could be going to an executive on a quarterly basis, but it's a great place to kind of surface a lot of information. When we read emails, we tend to be used to kind of reading longer messages and absorbing more information. It is also a really, really great tool for forwarding information that comes to your inbox. And so we find that the forwarding functionality with an Atrium dashboard is super, super powerful if something insightful is surfaced and you want to get that in front of the right person. Not everybody will receive the broadcasts. You can pick and choose who receives them, but as an example, we often have a set of managers on a broadcast, and as they see relevant information for an individual rep, they can forward that directly to their rep. And that's a very easy motion that folks are very much used to in email. It's also great at engendering a broader discussion around the metrics that land in email, or looking at trends over time with a broader group. So again, if we take the example of a set of managers that kind of starts with a dashboard that's broadcasted, they can then forward that to a specific working group that might be focused on pipeline generation, or a sales ops group that's focused on pipe hygiene. Examples of things where you're getting the right information, again, to the right folks at the right time. And then the last channel that we use is Slack. This is what we consider the highest interrupt for the most important metrics. And we've sort of written onto this column here how we try to bring a little bit of focus here. We call it quick bursts of information. And so when we talk about creating dashboards or alert feeds for Slack, we like to keep these focused. Less than 6 cards for a dashboard, less than 4 metrics for an alert feed. Slack is not an easy platform to scroll through a very long notification. And so we like to keep this top of mind when we schedule things for Slack. The way that we tend to use Slack in a lot of our workflows is very fast. It's an IM platform. It's good for quick questions. It's good for stuff that needs your attention quickly. And so we want to align that with what's coming from Atrium. We don't want elongated dashboards with trends that take time to analyze. Alerts, highly actionable strategic insights that come directly from Atrium and are calculated on our backend constantly, surfacing that up in bite-sized chunks so you can absorb them and take action on them. Awesome. The last point here on the Slack piece is keeping things very actionable. So celebrating wins. We often will surface kudos, alerts, a list of wins that have happened in the past week. We also have opportunities to close ops. So this can be a pipeline hygiene motion or a poor health alert from op health that will give you something that you can take action on immediately. When you see a set of opportunities that have been untouched for 90+ days, that's something that you can click into Salesforce right away and close those out and clean out your pipeline. We also tend to draw out meetings that don't have, opportunities that don't have a next meeting scheduled. This is very easy to configure within Atrium, and it's very actionable. If you see your 4 to 5 opportunities that you don't have a meeting scheduled for, but is closing this quarter, that's something that you can get on the calendar right away. Awesome. We wanted to show a calendar approach here, and it's a little bit hard to see given the text is rather small, but really what we're trying to show here is the different broadcasts are different colors here and how we have scheduled them. And really the key takeaway that I would like folks to grab from this slide is don't schedule everything for Monday morning. We tend to default and say, this is great information. I want to get it first thing in the week. And so this goes back to getting the right information at the right time, as well as level of interrupt. If you have 10 dashboards from Atrium and you schedule them all for your Slack instance at 9 a.m. on Monday, it's essentially unreadable at that point. And even in email, it's a lot to absorb. And that's not always the appropriate time to review that stuff. Monday morning, you're raring to go. You're probably having your kickoff meetings for the week. And so thinking very diligently about your managerial cadences and creating this portfolio approach to distributions is highly, highly important. We tend to match things up with team meetings, how they occur in the week, as well as rep one-on-ones. One sort of hot tip that I give to a lot of my customers is if you have a one-on-one dashboard, common metrics that you review in every meeting with your reps, schedule that thing to send out 1 hour before your one-on-one. In that way, the manager as well as the rep are both armed with the appropriate data to have a very rich discussion in that one-on-one, and able to surface and focus on alerts, positive outcomes that have come from the last week and how to continue on that trend, and also anything that is negative or lagging where you can shore up those efforts. That's a great approach to getting that distributed throughout the week so that you're not inundated at one point with too much information. There are certainly appropriate times to send things on Monday mornings, especially if you configure things to show you metrics from last week versus the current week. Also, when we show positive alerts, what we like to call kudos alerts, we like to send those at the end of the week, in the mornings on Fridays. We find those to be very uplifting and empowering when the whole team gets to see their peers doing very well themselves on these kudos feeds. And so we find that very uplifting, and folks kind of go into the weekend with good feelings. Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about the right people. So we have sort of two branches here. And the first one, we're going to be talking about sales managers as well as their cadences. So it's sort of a Venn diagram of the right people at the right time. Here we're trying to outline what should be sent on a daily basis as opposed to a weekly basis. So daily stand-ups, what we like to sort of configure here is, let's talk about what happened yesterday, or let's talk about what's going to happen today. So we do have some things called Rise and Shine dashboards. These are typically activity metrics and outcomes from the day before, as well as progress to week. And so these are very, very powerful to surface on a daily basis and say, hey, here's where you stand in terms of this week, and something that you can clearly action through the end of the week. Again, in terms of determining the frequency, how can we create something that's highly actionable that you can take action on immediately when you receive that notification? On a weekly basis, we spoke a little bit about one-on-ones. Here we've highlighted the Atrium rep profile pages. So I spoke a little bit about having a one-on-one dashboard with common metrics, but a sort of out-of-the-box feature with Atrium is each rep has their own profile page. And so you can jump in there and see all of the sort of automated alerts that Atrium creates. These can be positive or warning alerts, as well as strategy insights, a sort of amalgamation of a variety of KPIs that lead to an actionable coaching point. One of our favorite features here at Atrium, and these will be focused on the rep at hand. If you have configured goals for this rep, whether that's a quota goal or a pipeline creation goal or certain activity metrics, those goals will be on this page as well, and they will also throw alerts when there's anything kind of under or overperforming against those goals. So very, very powerful to kind of broadcast out to your reps right before their one-on-ones, so they can be armed with that data again for your session. Pipeline reviews, one of my favorite types of sessions to attend both with customers as well as internally at Atrium. This is a very, very great opportunity to put up an Atrium opportunity health view. Again, this is a feature that algorithmically determines whether your opportunity that is open is in poor, at risk, neutral, or good health. And we tend to put these into the meeting calendar invites, open them up, share the screen with the entire team, and then walk through the available pipeline. We often focus on what's in poor health. That is something that is actionable or at risk and something that you should take action on. And there are often some attributes that you can pull directly out of the opportunity health. These could be, there's no next meeting scheduled. It has been untouched for 20 to 30 days plus. And so you do find these small points where you can immediately give a coaching point and say, this is something that we can do right away. Goal performance, also one of my favorite flavors of broadcasts and alerts. When it comes to setting goals in Atrium, we have 3 timeframes: weekly, monthly, and quarterly. Atrium will automatically create alerts against these goals. It won't necessarily broadcast right away, but what it will do is midweek, if you are on pace to hit your weekly goal, you'll get a neutral alert. But if you're underperforming against that, that will also throw an alert. And that is something that you can broadcast directly to your rep or to the managers so that they have something to take action on. Same thing for monthly or quarterly goals. And something that is very, very powerful about Atrium is we take the historical data of a rep or a team in order to create a projection against those goals. So if you have a meetings on calendar goal on a weekly basis, and say we want 10 meetings on calendar as an example, if historically you have created 7 meetings per week and your current actual towards the end of the week is about 3 or 4, we will likely project you to about 7, and you will show as missing that goal. So very powerful sort of forecasting, built-in forecasting against goals that we have in Atrium. Team meetings, very similar to pipeline review. These can be individual or at the team level. And again, kind of popping your Atrium link, your asset link into your meeting invite, that gives everybody kind of the same resource to align on right away, review the data, and kind of everybody's on the same page, and there's no sort of mysterious passing around of data or sharing of data during the meeting. It's all kind of in the meeting invite and ready to go, so folks can have a very good discussion around that. And then coaching tied into one-on-ones. It's a little bit different given that one-on-ones can be rather boilerplate. We tend to sort of copy from a template, make sure that folks have the same core metrics. Again, there are Atrium rep profile pages, but there could be a very specific point that you're coaching with a specific rep. It could be sort of building up their prospecting toolkit and making sure that they are able to kind of source new business by themselves. It could be a pipeline hygiene use case where you are focusing on them sort of clearing out their pipe and creating a lot of focus around that. So you can create a specific dashboard specific to that use case, and also have that included in that either their meeting link or broadcasted in conjunction with the cadence of that coaching session. I am buzzing through a lot of content right now, so again, please leverage the Q&A and please leverage the chat. If anything looks confusing on here and you'd like me to zoom in or double click on, I'm happy to do that. All right. Our next set of cadences is a little bit more focused on the sales operations side of the house and how we can leverage broadcast to keep our upper management aware of what's going on within the sales org, as well as keep ourselves aware. I'm a former sales operations person. I used to do data infrastructure and sales strategy. And so Atrium is actually a tool that I would have really, really loved in my past life as I was rolling out more sort of, I don't want to say archaic, that's a little bit too strong, but I was rolling out BI tools to sales teams in the past, and adoption and really keeping things very focused and insightful was a bit of a challenge with a tool like these, with a tool like those. And so with Atrium, we're able to solve some of those problems through not only on a daily basis, the sort of custom report and dashboard requests that leadership might have. These can be things focused on, hey, like we have a big pipe generation goal right now, or we have an average sales price goal, and we should be upselling and cross-selling a little bit more in our deal cycle. These are things that we can create for our upper management and also distribute down to our sales managers as well to bring a focus to those specific sales objectives. On a more weekly basis, we do have automatic insight distribution. So Atrium does this in a couple of different ways. We have digest emails that kind of pull together your top priority performance alerts. We do have strategy insights as well, which is, again, Atrium kind of preempting any analysis that you have to do on your own. It sort of ties together and trends together several different KPIs to create an actionable insight for a rep or for a manager's team. The revenue leadership meeting, these tend to be a little bit more common in terms of the metrics that we have in Atrium: bookings, wins, pipeline, forward-looking. We do have some forecasting capability with our weighted pipeline metrics as well. And so when our sales leaders come together and start to think about where the business is headed, these tend to be a little bit more high level and and removed from the daily activities that we would see in a sales manager or in a rep's view. I just spoke a little bit about forecasting. This is something that we actually have a few very powerful features on. One thing that I just mentioned was weighted pipeline. We have several customers who are now using a weighted pipeline by historical win rate as a proxy for their forecasts. And we found it to be rather accurate in the cases that I've seen. What we do is we take the pipeline that is open and whatever individual opportunity stage they are in, taking the historical win rate of that stage for that rep and weighting it so that we can have a proxy to a forecast, which we can then distribute back to teams, back to the managers to say where we expect them to hit against their quota, as well as up to leadership. And you can roll these up to the org level. You can break them down to each individual rep and broadcast them pursuant to who should be seeing which aggregate level. And then rep performance and red flags. So we have alerts that come in three flavors: positive alerts, neutral alerts, as well as warning alerts. And these warning alerts can be configured against pretty much any metric that we have in Atrium. It can be a bookings alert, it can be an activities alert. And so creating these sort of red flag warning alerts for individual reps, we find it very, very powerful to distribute these directly to the reps. So we talked a little bit about kudos feeds that go out to everybody, and then pairing those with warning alerts that go directly to the rep. That way you're not exactly, sort of highlighting their warning alerts in front of the entire group. It's something that is highly actionable for that rep. And it's also something that a sales manager has visibility into and then can take those into the coaching sessions. And then finally, on a quarterly basis, when you have board meetings and QBR meetings, being able to pull together core performance data very quickly for these, and even scheduling these to go out on a quarterly basis, is something that is very powerful for Atrium. It's something that you can schedule right before the quarterly board meeting. It's something that you can schedule just to your leadership before you go to the board meetings. I personally use these myself when I meet with my customers. For our QBRs, I send the core metrics that we were tracking, specific objectives that we were keying in on directly to me so that I can prep for my QBRs with customers. Awesome. One thing I do want to highlight with broadcasting, we call this, this is a PSA for everybody here, but your distribution strategy should evolve over time. We are all in fast-growing and fast-moving companies. Priorities do change, and with that, the sort of the right information, right people, and right time, what those goals are, those will change as well. And something that I got out of one of our books that we have everybody read here at Atrium, Cracking the Sales Management Code, is that if you have a stale broadcast or a stale goal that's out there, but that is still broadcasting to your people, they are going to take action against that. And so being aware of when your priorities change, when your organization changes, whether you've hired a lot recently or added new layers of management, these are things to keep in mind as you evolve your broadcast strategy. Often we see folks kind of creating new assets and getting those broadcasted, but not turning off the prior distributions. And that becomes the seed for inundating one's inbox and turning Atrium, or really any tool you're using, into not something that is actionable and people are excited to get the notifications, but rather another eye-rolling archive motion when you start to get stuff that isn't relevant to your business anymore. So just to touch on these three pillars again: right information, that is if your priorities as an organization have changed, or if hiring has significantly slowed or increased. The right people, these can be new people who are being added to management. These could be new reps. These could be reps that are getting promoted, etc. And the right time. If your sales cycle has changed, or if you split your sales motion out by segment, if you've created a new channel organization, or you're doing outbounding now, and they are still getting really the same old inbound metrics that don't really apply. There's different parts of the sales cycle that are now missing based on what they're focused on. That will definitely engender disinterest. That's not updated. Awesome. So we do have about 5 minutes left here. So I wanted to show a couple of examples within Atrium. We'll start with the AE ramping use case. So ramping is a very, very powerful use case that we have here at Atrium, and I think we do it rather well. When I click on these links, what you'll see is a real customer's organization, but all of the names have been hidden. This is so as to protect folks' names if, say, they're not ramping well, and also any sort of proprietary information that might be sort of named in here. So what I'm showing you right now is a folder screen. Here, what we've done is just foldered together a set of ramping views. I'll click on a specific dashboard here. And so within this dashboard, the way that this customer has configured it is starting with an opportunities owned ramping in the first 6 months, as well as checking against their trailing 6 months view. So the way to sort of pair these metrics together is we do sort of a cohort agnostic ramp. So you can see where everybody started, and you can see who had a very good ramp. It looks like Bonnie Hops or Shen Yu had a very good ramp in terms of opportunities owned. And then if you look at the trailing 6 months, this looks to be business as usual type of pipeline to be owned. And so as you see folks who are ramping here, they would have started, when you look at a trailing view here in January, start of the year, we want them to get to this level and seeing how soon they can get to a level of between 70 to 90 opportunities owned within a trailing 6-month period. As we scroll down, you can see that we have activity metrics to pair with the ramping. We do expect ramping employees to be working and acting as if they are fully ramped. And so that is something that we track during their ramp. Stage advancements, how quickly can you start to move opportunities through the funnel? Data lights, I believe, is a proprietary term for this organization. So we can, I'll speak to you, this is a specific stage. It could be a demo within your sales motion. It could be a certain type of presentation. It could be turning on data from a backend integration perspective. So this is what that is tracking. Deals that hit proposal within your ramping 12 and trailing 12, as well as wins and bookings. And so what I really want to highlight here is, when does this dashboard get sent out? So if you click on the sort of schedule button over here, you'll see that this thing is sent out daily at the beginning of the week and at the end of the week at 11 a.m. Pacific. So I think what this customer has sort of done here is we've been able to get away from broadcasting this first thing Monday. It's something that's actionable, and I am assuming it is aligned when this manager is looking at how well folks are ramping. Hiring is likely in focus, and that's why they have this ramping dashboard. And I think for many folks on this call, you will be hiring a lot and growing. One thing that I do want to touch on here is within this broadcast integration or configuration panel, you can not only send to emails and send to sort of listservs, as well as sending to Slacks. And so if you haven't integrated Slack yet, that is a very, very powerful feature that every individual who has an Atrium license can get configured. If you haven't integrated it yet, you will see highlighted at the top a button that says connect to Slack. There is also a way to do it from your menu on the right with the company integrations, which is not showing here because we're in demo mode. And we've just surfaced the support article to integrate to Slack in the chat. Awesome. So one last thing that I want to show folks here is the prospecting dashboard. This is also a customer who is hidden here in our demo mode. And here we have op creation metrics, ops created this quarter, self-sourced by AEs, as well as the pipeline dollar value of that. And then activity metrics pursuant to those goals. So prospecting accounts touched, you can then see the activities that build into those successful outcomes, and as well as a couple of different timeframes. And so with this dashboard, what I wanted to show was how you could configure this from the outset. So when I look at the metrics here, and I think a little bit about, one, the frequency that these are showing here, that we're showing on the dashboard, as well as how often this happens in practice, I would guess that this is something that can occur on a weekly basis. And because we kind of start things off with last week here, as well as this month, we do want to see things at a frequency that shows us our progress within a month. So I would schedule this weekly, and I would go for something like midday on Mondays. That way folks have a chance to kind of review how their self-prospecting efforts from the previous week happened against, sort of juxtaposed against their progress this month. Awesome. I know we are at time here, but do want to spend, maybe we can answer 1 or 2 questions if folks want to hang back for a little bit. So not sure if we have the Q&A open here. Oh, no questions in the Q&A. Well, that either means I did a really, really good job or a really bad job and wasn't able to engender any additional questions. Any last minute questions that we can pop into the chat? Okay, well, if there is no other questions, thank you, Mary, and thank you everybody for joining us today. One last thing that I do want to highlight is we do have this office hours series continuing after this week. The next session is going to be focused on BDR prospecting excellence and how you can engender really great behaviors against your BDR teams as they reach out to new customers. From there, we'll move into Atrium integration. So not just talking about broadcast, but all the really fun integrations that we have in terms of bringing data as well as broadcasting data out of Atrium. And then Atrium for AMs and CSMs, so a subject that I'm rather passionate about because I am a senior CSM here at Atrium. So that should be a very fun session. So thanks again, everybody, for joining. Thank you for sort of taking the time out to learn a little bit about broadcast strategy with me. Hopefully this was useful. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or to the customer success team. Mary, the link is just above your message that you sent, the salesnerds.atriumhq. If you click on that, you can sign up for all of the ensuing office hours. Awesome. So with that said, I think we can wrap. Again, we will also send a follow-up to the folks on this call with the broadcast strategy sort of playbooks that we have, as well as a link to sign up for the office hours. Thanks everybody for joining, and have an excellent day and have a great rest of your week.